All right, now here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, to the latest on the passing of One Big Beautiful Bill, the act which the Trump administration is now calling the Working Families Tax Cut. And just yesterday, House Speaker Mike Johnson touting the bill's benefits, saying he spent plenty of his time during August traveling his district. He got positive reactions. Today we are joined now by Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina's 5th District, which includes serving York, Chester, and Lancaster counties. Thank you for joining us here on WCNC Plus, Congressman.
Glad to be with you, Jane. Thank you.
Well, you supported this legislation while also raising, and I'm going to quote, serious fiscal concerns. Walk us through what some of those concerns are and why you ultimately decided to vote yes.
What we did, Jane, was I was on the Budget Committee, was one of the 3 that voted it down for passage. And the reason for that was to make it more conservative. Now, let me give you some examples of what we were battling for. One was to not allow illegals to receive a government paycheck in the form of a Medicaid check. Another one was able-bodied Americans who could work but chose not to should not be getting a check, a government check of any kind. Some of the credits, the solar panel credits, should have been discontinued. The 7,500 electric car credit should have been discontinued, and all of these were what President Trump ultimately wanted. And they had nuclear credits. They had, I could name you 4 pages of credits that needed to be paused until we get this country back on a firm financial footing. The $35 trillion in counting is not going anywhere until we deal with it. So what we did, as we debated the bill, we came to an agreement. The House passed it. It went to the Senate. They put some things back in there that we just didn't like. And it's mainly the Freedom Caucus who were driving the conservative thoughts on this. So when it came back to the House, the president called us over, about 8 of us, and said, "Guys, what are you doing?" We said, "Mr. President, we're making it better, and we're negotiating like you wanted us to." And to his credit, he kind of walked us through the political process of if we made changes, and if it went back to the Senate, then you had 3 senators that were going to block it. Tom Tillis is not running for office. He's no fan of the president. Lisa Murkowski's term will be past when Donald Trump leaves office. She's no fan of Donald Trump. Rand Paul is no fan of Donald Trump and will vote no. So those were the 3. What we risk, had we altered it, was no bill at all, which many of the senators did not want anyway, including the tax cuts. We were not going to let that happen. So when the president told us that, we got on board, passed it, and the rest is history. The country is better off for a tax cut plan that really truly benefited the whole country, and particularly my state of South Carolina.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the benefits then for South Carolina families that you're highlighting, including that tax cut. Who specifically is really going to benefit from this most?
Everyday working Americans. No tax on tips, had a limit of $25,000. Deduction of interest with cars that are made in the United States. It's child tax deduction. We would have seen, Jane, a 26% increase had we not passed this tax bill. And it really is a working class tax bill for all Americans, but in South Carolina, manufacturing is a big thing that it helped. For that farmer who wants to pass on his farm to a family and not face a inheritance tax, that the Biden administration would have cut that limit down dramatically. It was just a win for the American people. And I hadn't seen a tax bill like this, or a big, beautiful bill that was encompassed so much in my 8 years in Congress. But if you roll it back even past that, 35 years, 40 years, we've never had a Congress get together on this. He funded the border. What the Biden administration did to this country by opening the doors to every country is now being corrected. So all in all, it was a great win. Would I have rather seen more cuts? Yes. But we did what we could while we could do it, and this was the best that we could do, and I'm excited we passed it.
Let's talk about the implementation for work requirements for able-bodied adults on Medicaid. Can you explain some of these requirements who would be able to go back to work, and then perhaps some of the safeguards in place for those who might lose coverage?
Yeah, and the work requirements are really important, but let me explain what that encompasses. When they say work requirements, it means 20 hours a week. Now, you think how many hours you put in on reporting, and most Americans put in far more than 20 hours a week. But the guardrails were 20 hours a week. It could be community service. It could be a variety of things. If you had, I think if you were over a particular age, it's only applied to, I think, 58 and under, or maybe 55 and under. They had, if you had any kind of physical ailment, for that single mom who was pregnant, they had waivers for that. So the safeguards were in place. But bear in mind, for your listeners, 20 hours a week, that's a low threshold. I would have rather seen 35 or 40 hours, but again, we couldn't get the passage of that. So you take what is possible and don't let perfect get in the way of the possible, as they have always said.
Sure. I hear it's now the working families tax cut. Is that a strategic rebranding, and does it have more public support than, say, the One Big Beautiful Bill?
You know, messaging is, as you know, in this world today is important. I do think the new name is more applicable because that's what it is. If we hadn't have had anything else but the tax cuts part of this, it would have been worth passing. But we got legitimate cuts. We got on the reconciliation, we got guardrails. You know, we had a $2 trillion cut. We had a 1.6 threshold, but it went up to 2 trillion. We had a 2.6% growth rate because what this president has done is energized all sectors of our economy, particularly in South Carolina. We have businesses that want to locate there. So all in all, I think the name does have meaning, and I think it's the right thing to do.
To your constituents who might feel a little insecure now, especially the low-income families, about losing possible access to health care or food care assistance programs, what is your message to them today?
My message to them is if they analyze what was passed, it benefits everybody. The median income in South Carolina is $67,000. I think the poverty level is right at 30 for joint home, 30-some thousand. Bottom line, if you want a job, if you want to go to work, if you want to get an education, the areas to get that. What we're trying to do, and we've begun the process for that young American who is wanting to get ahead, wanting to apply their God-given talents, this enables them to do this. We're shrinking government. So anybody that has concerns, and I have had some, I mean, what our opponents on the left is saying, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to Social Security, which we couldn't do, and it was, throwing Granny off the cliff. That's just not right. It's a mischaracterization. They always use that, but look at the country. Look at the country now as opposed to a year ago under Biden or the previous 4 years. There's no comparison. I think if people were honest with themselves, it's a safer feeling now, and it's a feeling that you can invest in this country and you can find a job, particularly in my state of South Carolina and North Carolina.
And you said you'll keep fighting for the rest of the provisions that didn't make it into the final bill. For you, what are your priorities for any future legislation?
Well, we've got a pocket rescissions coming of basically of foreign aid. I think in this country we have been the world's keeper. And when you ask yourself the question, where's this money coming from? It's borrowed money. America needs to take care of America. We cannot be the world's keeper because we're not in a position to do that. I think we've begun the process. I think what the Doge Commission did to identify those areas that money should not have been allocated. Should we allocate $3 million to show Sesame Street in Iraq? Should we allocate the $40 million for building walls in Libya and other countries? I would make the argument we can't afford that, and it's not fair to the younger generation as well as all Americans to keep that kind of spending. Bottom line, Jane, we've got a spending problem. We don't have an income problem. And we've got to tackle it now. And if not now, I don't know when we do it.
All right, last question, Congressman Norman. Looking ahead to the midterm elections, how confident are you in the working families tax cut? How will voters see that legislation benefit their daily lives? Will they see it by then?
Oh, yeah. Voters are already seeing it. I mean, they're voting with, you're seeing it in two ways. Those states who are not embracing the big beautiful bill or the things that Donald Trump has. You look at New York, people are fleeing, which once was a great state, and they're coming to areas here in South Carolina and the southern states. Look at California. Totally overrun by government, and that's not America, and that's not the way this country was built. So yes, we're going to keep the midterms. We've got some great candidates coming up. I'll be working for candidates. And the left now, the Democrat Party is now the socialistic party of open borders, open crime, and that's not what's built this country, and I think the American people realize that.
Congressman Ralph Norman of South Carolina's 5th District, thank you so much for your time and for weighing in.
My pleasure. Thank you.
With online shopping at an all-time high, scammers are finding new ways to target consumers right at their doorstep. So this morning we're joined by Juliana O'Rourke from the Better Business Bureau to discuss two critical scams that could cost you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars and put your personal information at risk. Juliana, thanks for joining us here this morning. Yeah, so all right, let's talk about the first scam here. When it comes to delivery scams, what exactly are you talking about?
Yes, so delivery scams are very prominent during the holiday season, but as you mentioned, online shopping has really skyrocketed the last couple years. I know I have lots of things just on Amazon, subscribe and save,
I have so
and
much. Yep.
Things just show up all the time. And so delivery scams have become really prominent, and there's a couple different angles that scammers use when it comes to delivery scams. So first of all, you might get a text message that says, some random information about how your package is not going to show up, it's delayed, it's here, there, wherever, and they want you to click on a link. And if you click on that link, they're looking for either your personal information or your financial information. So, we always encourage people not to respond to unsolicited text messages. If you think there might be something wrong, go check the actual tracking information that you received. But that is one way that scammers are essentially working with these delivery scams, if you will.
So if they get this text, what should people be looking for? Because it kind of looks legit on your phone.
Yeah, sometimes they look legit. Sometimes they're very nefarious where they don't really have a lot of information. It just says, oh, your delivery can be delivered. We don't have the right address. We don't have, this information or that information, and here's a link. But it doesn't say, which provider it is. It doesn't say what package. Sometimes it might include a number. Sometimes it doesn't. And so those should be red flags. Also, most companies don't just text you unsolicited like that. If there's an issue, they're going to email you, or you would have probably seen in some other way that there was going to be an issue, but you don't really often get text messages randomly like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I read one person lost maybe $200 on a scam involving their Zelle payment. And that's a cash payment, right? So what had happened there?
Yeah. So you want to be careful anytime you use a Zelle or any peer-to-peer type payments. You basically should treat that as cash. So if you're going to send money to anybody, and sometimes they request additional fees for delivery, whatever the case might be, which is strange anyways, because once you order a product and pay for it, there shouldn't be any additional fees that somebody asks for.
Okay.
But they're using that tactic to try to get your funds. But yeah, we always remind people never pay with peer-to-peer payments, especially if you don't know the person, because you're not going to get your money back.
All right. So you said if they do suspect something happening, what should they do? And then what should they do if they've already fallen victim to hitting one of those links?
Yeah. So if you've fallen victim to one of those links, especially if you've provided your personal personal or your financial information, you probably want to reach out to one of the 3 credit bureaus, if not all of them, to freeze your credit report. Of course, reach out to the financial institution for, whichever way you sent the funds. If you did use a credit card, that would have a little bit more protection than, any type of peer-to-peer payment. But those are things you want to be careful and looking out for. Also, you want to make sure if it's something that's really valuable, maybe request a signature when it's delivered. It may cost a little bit, but if it's something that's really important to you, then, request that it's signed for, and somebody can't just leave it on your front porch. We also know that people get packages stolen from their front porch. So if you know there's a delivery window or a day or time that something's going to be delivered, make sure it doesn't sit on your porch. If it's, whether you have a neighbor come grab it for you, if you need to be home during that time. But we encourage people to not leave packages just sitting on the porch.
Yeah. Something that important. You want that picked up right away by yourself or someone you know. And these are good tips, though, to keep in mind as we get closer to the holidays when it can really do some damage.
Exactly.
All right. Another way of scamming folks is through cryptocurrency. What are you seeing there? The BBB. How does this work?
Yeah, so cryptocurrency and investment scams are really prominent. We've had more than 4,000 reports since 2020 about this type of a scam. And oftentimes it starts with romance scams, but there's a lot of different ways that this can happen. And one way we've seen is through TikTok. We know social media platforms are a haven for scammers. They love to live there. They love to try to get people, and take advantage of them in that way. So basically what we've seen is you've got TikTok users, they're scrolling, you maybe get a direct message from somebody offering this really great investment deal. You look them up, maybe they seem legitimate based on their TikTok profile, so you decide to work with them. Basically, it's just a hoax from the beginning. And so anytime you send them money, they might want you to buy the cryptocurrency to then send them, and then they invest it. They'll tell you kind of, all these really great things. You get a lot of money back. You'll, 3 times the investment you're making, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you want to get your money back or pull those funds out, they hit you with all these random fees. And if you pay one fee, then they ask for another fee. And basically, long story short, you never get your money back.
Oh my goodness. Who are the typical targets for this kind of scam?
Anybody. I mean, they really will target anybody that's willing to engage with them or, listen. We always encourage people, again, don't interact with people that reach out to you randomly that you don't know for this particular reason. And if somebody does reach out to you, first of all, if the deal is too good to be true, that's because it normally is. We also encourage people to do their research outside of those particular platforms. So maybe you looked at their account on TikTok and it looked good, but go out to Google and search that person's name, search their account. What are other people saying? Because if this is somebody that's actually doing investments, there's going to be other people that have things to say, especially if they were already scammed. Then, there's a lot of people that are going to be making comments on social media so that, at least other people don't get taken advantage of like they did.
Oh my goodness. So many things to watch out for. But I mean, don't really do anything that's unsolicited.
Exactly.
That's the key here.
Investments are an interesting one because they're so monitored by the government in general. And so, if somebody's just saying they're doing investment work for you, you should be able to find a lot of information about them.
Right. All right. So do not fall for any crazy links or TikTok messages trying to seduce you, because it is a bit of a seduction trying to get you more rich or more wealthy. Any other protections that people need to know about for either scam, whether it's delivery or cryptocurrency investments?
With the investment scams, if you're really interested in investing, reach out to a financial advisor. You can find one on bbb.org, an accredited one, so you know that they've gone through our accreditation process. And as always, another big tip, if it's too good to be true, that's because it is.
Yep.
But anytime somebody really pressures you into something and they are saying you have to act now, it must be done, today, that's also a red flag, because if something is that great, it won't be available for only one day. So.
All right. Yeah. Peer pressure was something in high school, maybe.
Yes,
and these aren't even your peers.
Exactly.
So don't fall for it. All right. Juliana O'Rourke from the Better Business Bureau, always giving us some good advice, good tips. So you are not asking for yourself, where's the money? Where's my money? Where did I lose it? Don't do it. All right. Thanks, Juliana.
NFL is finally back, officially week 1. And of course, we have to bring in Locked On Panthers' very own Julian Castle to break it all down.
Yep.
Panthers getting off to a start that has been consistent with the last couple of years, we can say, especially just under Bryce Young so far. So I wanted to get your first impressions of this week 1 opening loss.
Yeah, first impressions, Danielle, is yikes. We're back at it again with the Panthers getting off to a horrendous start and embarrassing themselves and the fan base in one foul sweep. But it is just week 1, which no one wants to hear that because they haven't been to the playoffs since 2017. And last year they get blown up 47-10. The year before that they lose. This is now, I believe, 4 straight years possibly of starting off 0-1. And it's a trend that has been where Carolina has not played often in the preseason, which has a lot of fans wondering, are they prepared for the season? Even Dave Canales was asked after the game, what happens? What's the disconnect? And he can't answer that. So that is a problem for Carolina. So for them to come out and play the way that they play today, it is alarming. But again, just 1 week.
Right. Like we were just talking about, half of the teams in the NFL have to lose each week.
Sure.
So, at the end of the day, it's not the worst odds. But, of course, when you're looking at a game, focus is going to be on the quarterback. And coming into the season, everyone was looking at Bryce Young, hoping he's going to be taking that step forward, especially with how this team ended last year. People think maybe he turned a corner.
Certainly.
And he sure may have. But we saw what he did in this week 1, and it did not indicate necessarily that there was that much forward progression in terms of his development. He showed a lot of frustration on his face visibly. He threw the helmet, things like that as well, and spoke about it a little bit afterwards in his press conference. What were your takeaways from Bryce's performance? I know you had a couple notes about him in terms of turnovers and interceptions as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of emotion that we really haven't seen from Bryce as starting quarterback here in Carolina when he has had a lot of games like today, unfortunately. And yeah, you mentioned the numbers I put out there over on social media. Bryce Young now in his 3 week 1 starts has 6 interceptions and 1 fumble. 6 of those giveaways have resulted into points for the opponent, and that's 30 total points across the last 3 games in week 1. So 10 week 1 against the Falcons in his rookie debut, 10 last year against New Orleans, and 10 today against Jacksonville. And that's just not winning football. When your quarterback is throwing 2 interceptions and fumbling, you're not going to have success, whether it's week 1, week 7, week 12, the playoffs, if they ever got there. That's just not what you want to see. And it's disappointing because you know that Bryce Young is capable of playing so much better than he played today. But we also, unfortunately, know he's capable of doing this. So I asked heading into the season, who is the real Bryce Young? Is it something in between what we saw weeks 1 and weeks 2 last year to what we saw in the final 9 weeks? Is it what we saw today? I don't know, but the consistency has to be there if Carolina is going to invest in him after this season, whether it be the 5th-year option or long-term. And what you saw today, that is alarming, especially that this is a trend where, whether it's been with Dave Canales or Frank Reich for that 1 year, he does not get off to a good start. Therein, the Panthers don't get off to a good start.
Yeah, and you mentioned that before. The people had that term Bama Bryce and wanted to see if Bama Bryce is going to be back. And of course, he would love to get back to the level of play that he was playing when he was dominating in college. But I think something interesting about Bryce is he's someone who's very attuned in his emotions and very he keeps his mental state, it seems, really clear when he's speaking to the media and everything out there. He talked about that frustrating moment when it was at 4th and 1 and he ended up airing it out. I think a lot of people had a lot of head scratches when they saw him. He had a couple of options and he ended up just throwing it away. And he talked about that one after the game too and said, it was a frustrating moment for me. It was more of a lapse of judgment. Do you see his confidence shaken at all, or do you think, hey, it's week 1 and he can continue to be that confident Bryce Young in terms of his mentality?
No, I'm not concerned about his confidence at all. That was an interesting play. Certainly, you've seen that happen before. The only times I've truly seen that happen is in college. I've never really seen an NFL quarterback, even if it's week 1, understood, not fighting for that extra yard to be able to get that first down. And that's a disappointing part of it. Mark Schlereth, who was on the Fox broadcast, and mentioned that JT Sanders was coming across the middle, was going to be open potentially for a touchdown, and for Bryce just to effectively give up on the play. I don't know how Dave Canales felt about that or how the team feels about it, but I'm not saying he quit on the play. But when you just throw it away and you don't at least try to scramble, where he had a lot of effective scrambles. And yes, there were guys right there in front of him. You want to see him go out there and try to fight for that yard, fight for his team, especially in a situation where you're starting the 3rd quarter, you desperately need to get points, get off to a good start in that second half. And then just for that to be the response in that situation, that's disappointing to see. But I don't think that his confidence is shaken at all. It's just one of those things where you didn't see it, and he's like, okay, let me just get rid of the ball, not get hit. And, well, didn't really get to live to fight another down as they had to turn the ball over on down to that point in time.
This is not to negate that there were some positives that we did see out of him, of course, connecting with some of the weapons that he has. One of them, notably T-Mac.
Yeah.
We know that Bryce was instrumental in bringing T-Mac into Charlotte, and they had five connections for 68 yards together. T-Mac in his NFL debut. What are your first impressions? He was so close on a couple of plays. He had that one-handed catch that was almost crazy, but
Absolutely.
it obviously turned out to be a no play because of a penalty that was called, and then also a touchdown that was dropped. So just impressions of what he did out there today.
I'm going to need the NFL replay office to go back and look at that and see if they can retroactively give him the reception if that indeed was a reception. But yeah, I thought overall McMillan was open a lot of the times and was able to connect on a couple of those throws across the middle on third downs, which was a good thing to see, especially for a guy who they selected 8th overall, being his rookie debut against a solid, not great Jacksonville secondary. And you mentioned, like, it wasn't just that play. There was a play later on in the game after the J.C. Horn interception where good defensive play, maybe a penalty, could have been a touchdown there. There's another time when Bryce Young got hit, and Mark Schlereth on the broadcast had mentioned that it looked like they were trying to target McMillan down the field for what could have been a touchdown. So if you're looking for any sort of positives from today, it would be that. Running the ball wise, okay. If you look at the running backs, maybe not as much, but in totality, any day where you're over 100 yards rushing in the NFL is a solid day for that rushing attack. But yeah, there's not a ton of great things to take away offensively. But if you want to take anything away, look at the rookie Tedero McMillan, and you can see a guy who can absolutely be a star and that X spot in this offense at wide receiver.
And one of the notes from this Panthers team, of course, was that continuity on the O-line. Of course, Ike Ekwonu was not out there as he's still recovering from that appendectomy. Some questionable snaps from center position from Austin Corbett. But overall, they seem to hold their ground and do what they needed to do. It shows like they're taking a bit of a step forward as a unit, would you say?
Yeah, and continuity is so important. And rarely do you see in the NFL, and this was mentioned plenty of times throughout the offseason, everybody from an offensive line unit coming back, having all 9 of their top guys. And there have been some injury concerns, as Robert Hunt had the foot injury last week, was able to play in the game. Damian Lewis missed a lot of time throughout training camp and preseason, so maybe they missed continuity there as far as that goes. Then, of course, Ike Ekwonu not being available, but it's not like Josh Nijman hasn't started. He started 3 games last year, mainly on the right side at right tackle for Taylor Moton when he was injured, but you had Brady Christensen if you needed to go to him, and I thought Josh Nijman played a fine game, and Dave Canales even brought that up prior to his film review that we'll do after the game or when he gets back home to Charlotte tonight. But I thought overall they played fine. The concern, though, is what's going on with the snap surf Austin Corbett.
Right.
I'll be honest, Danielle. I've never had this many people calling to bench a center after week 1. And I get the Panther fan base is frustrated, but that is something that I had never thought I would see. I don't think they're going to bail on Corbett after 1 week. I don't know what the timing communication was with all of that. Neither of those bad snaps ever resulted into a catastrophic play, which certainly could happen, especially with the stature of the quarterback they have in Bryce Young. I'm sure they'll get that cleaned up. But that was one thing where you're like, what's going on there?
I think it's Panthers fans and all NFL fans who have just been itching to talk football for the first time in months.
Absolutely.
And, they got to have something to complain about. But that's all right. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball because we'll let that do the talking first. But we around here at WCNC Charlotte have been using the term historically poor defense in regards to their season last year. I think numbers-wise that backs up that saying as well. So this was the first time that we've been seeing this defense back out on the field. What were your impressions on that side of the ball?
Looked like the same old Panthers defense, unfortunately. And I know there was a lot of consternation about bringing back Ejiro Evero for the final year of his deal as Panthers defensive coordinator. And you looked and saw that out there today as for the 7th straight game, dating back to the end of last season, the Panthers have allowed at least 200 yards rushing to their opponent. That is not winning football in the NFL. Certainly, they won a couple of those games last year, but if they continue to have this trend, that will be a problem. And it's alarming because they brought in Turk Wharton on the first day of the league negotiating period to stop this. They brought in Bobby Brown III to stop this as well. Christian Roseboom coming over from L.A., Patrick Jones coming over from Minnesota. They were all supposed to be a part of improving the run defense along with Trevon Merrick, and we saw the same kind of issues we saw a year ago, especially on that 71-yard run from Travis Etienne. Great block by the tight end and great scheme by Liam Cohen, their head coach and play caller, where one of them gets taken out of the play, but then Merrick's not there to fill the hole. Then Nick Scott, who certainly had plenty of these moments last year, was not able to make the tackle. And if he does, it's a 12, 13-yard game.
Right.
He doesn't. It's 71-yard gain. And on that touchdown drive, all 91 yards that Jacksonville had were on the ground. Like, that is unacceptable on every level for this to continue. And Dave Canales has asked plenty about this last year. Why is Gerald Rivera still your DC? Do you feel confident about the scheme he's running? He said he likes the scheme. So if it's not the scheme, it has to be the personnel. They've added new personnel, and yet you got the same result, at least just for 1 week. But that is something that is very concerning to me, because that standard that has been set in the past, especially at the linebacker position, has not been met as of this moment in time, dating back the last couple of years of Gerald Rivera as their DC. So, yeah, that doesn't get cleaned up. Whether Bryce Young holds on to the football or not, they will not be a good football team.
But we do also know they did bring in some rookies on the defensive side. You mentioned the linebacker, the two edge rushers with Princely Umenyielen and Nick Scott, and we're going to see them continue to develop as well. It's a defense that's meshing, like you just mentioned, a ton of new names on this group who are here to bolster it, and that's what you'd, of course, want to see during your preseason and during those preseason games.
Yeah.
And that brings up that other argument when people were wondering, did the Panthers play their starters enough during the preseason? I think every team in the NFL wants to know if they got the most out of their preseason. Now looking back at it retroactively, do you like how the Panthers handled their preseason games in terms of using their players and their starters?
Well, I'll say this. San Francisco didn't play a lot of their starters, and they won today.
Sure.
Los Angeles, Sean McVay said from day one, I'm never going to play Matthew Stafford. He's had a bunch of injury concerns heading into the year, and they won today. So I just think it's a way for people to try to explain what happens. I'm not necessarily saying that it's right or wrong, but to me, you got to go out there and make plays and execute. Like, you have so much practice time going back to the spring, all throughout the summer, to prepare and be ready to go week one. And Dave Canales looked at what he did last year, and he recognized, I need to change things up. And he had the starters play 2 series against Cleveland in week 1, 2 series in week 2 against Houston, and they also had joint practices. And I think a big thing about that, because they talk about they get a lot of work out of that, fans aren't there to see it. So for them, they're not able to tangibly understand what has the work that they got in, what maybe has been improved upon. They only get to see glimpses of what they do in the preseason. So that then makes them think that, okay, they didn't get any work done at all. Well, that's just not the truth at all.
Sure.
This team just has to do a better job of executing. I don't know what the disconnect is between all the positive things that Dave Canales said about the work that they got done to them getting out there in week 1 and certainly not looking prepared against another team in Jacksonville that wasn't a good football team last year. Just like you couldn't stop anybody defensively, had problems offensively, questions about their quarterback, and they looked competent today while you didn't. So I don't think it's the preseason. I just think that whatever the preparation aside from that they're doing is just not working. And I'm going to tell people too, as long as they have 2 joint practices, I just don't imagine they're going to ever have a day where Dave Canales here in Carolina is going to play the starters an extended amount of time in the preseason. And if someone gets hurt, like Cam Newton back in 2019, are people going to be complaining about them playing the preseason? Or are they going to be like, oh, well, you got one of our top players hurt? Because you can't have it both ways. That's the only thing I'm going to say.
There is no winning. But
no.
Unless
you win in week 1, then people won't complain.
Unless you're a part of that 50% of the NFL who does win in week 1. Julian, I want to challenge you. If you are Dave Canales or any of the Panthers players, as you're flying back from Jacksonville right now, what is the one emotion or word that is sticking in your head as you're getting ready for another week in the NFL?
I mean, the emotion is just we're moving forward.
Sure.
You have 16 more games, 17 more weeks left in the regular season. There is plenty of time to fix what happened today. And I think they're a much better football team than what they showed. And I know no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear it's just week 1. They can come back next week, and they got to go on the road against Arizona, a franchise that they have dominated in recent years, but it's a different season, different team, all of that. But you got to move forward. You can't look at what happened today and think, oh, well, that's it. We're not going to be any good this season. I think they get back to work, obviously on Monday with film review, and they'll have Tuesday off. They'll be right back out there in the practice field on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I think this team will be ready to go next Sunday against Arizona. If they're not, they're 0-2 again, then it's the same kind of process. You got to take it week to week. I know it's very difficult for fans to think about that just because of what, of course, has gone on in recent years, but it's a week-to-week league. Your team can look terrible one week. You looked at last year against Dallas. Looked like they couldn't protect Bryce Young. The next week, went in overtime against Arizona. You have those weeks against Kansas City, against Philadelphia, and then you have that Dallas game and Tampa game. So it's a week-to-week league. It changes every single week. They just got to get back to their process, be able to get healthy, and actually execute. And I think that they'll show far better than what we saw today.
All right, yeah. So we will see what week 2 brings for the Carolina Panthers,
Yes,
as
we
you
will.
mentioned, facing Arizona before they come back for their home opener in just a couple weeks at this point against Atlanta. So Julian Council with Locked On Panthers. Thanks for watching.
Well, good day, everybody. Meteorologist Chris Mulcahy taking over the live Impact studio. I want to start off with the forecast, and then I'll get over to Jane, and we also have James in studio as well. It's a gorgeous day. It's spectacular, actually. I'm super pumped about it. So who's ready for greatness? Let's roll tape. Yeah, we are. Here we go. Bow. Okay, so this morning was chilly. You felt that fall crisp air, and then look at those blue skies off yonder. 64 degrees right now in Charlotte, 59 for you in Rock Hill, 61 in Hickory, and then we're back to the 50-degree point in the mountains. It was 41 as I saw for a low, but this morning we dropped down to 58 degrees. That is also the coolest low that we've had over the last 3 months. Since June 1st, we have had that. Now, it looks like overall we are dealing with pretty much a cooler pattern, and you're going to see really, I think, our bottom hit right around tomorrow morning, where I have 56 degrees instead of 58, 57 back to 58 before we're right around 60 degrees pretty much Friday through the weekend before those temperatures start to come on up. But this is going to be a nice little trend, and we're heading in the right direction. But still, compared to 24 hours ago, boy, is there a big difference, because yesterday actually wasn't too bad. It just didn't warm up because of that cloud cover. So cloud cover in the morning is always going to keep you a little bit warmer. It's kind of like having your nice little blanket, but then sometimes it can be like a childhood blanket and there's some holes in it. Our 24-hour temperature change all over the place. About a 5 to 10 degree difference, but at one point early this morning when I was over in the studio, where there was a 19 degree difference where it was 19 degrees cooler for you around Boone, but you also dropped down to 41 degrees. Over the last few days, we have been all over the place, but welcome to fall, y'all. This is what happens. 89, feeling more like the lower to the mid-90s, and then yesterday at 74. Now, today's going to be a little bit better, about 78 degrees for Charlotte, 78 around Rock Hill, and 80 degrees is the top. Right around Lancaster. There's nothing really to mention as well because that cloud cover is pretty much non-existent. The rain is taking a huge break. I don't really have a lot to report. But the futurecast wind gusts are going to be a little bit on the breezy side. If you have any plans later this morning, heading into the afternoon, that breeze could take your napkins away if you're eating around lunchtime. So I just want everyone to be hesitant, hunker those down. Occasional gusts up to 20 to 25 will feel cool, which would be great when you're in the sunshine, not so much in the shade. After the evening, things are winding down. Speaking of the evening, officially at 8:13, the moon rises up, and unlike what we had about a week and a half ago, you're going to have more of a nighttime moon. We were having that last longer in the day compared to actually what we see at night. This is going to be perfect because it's 97% illuminated because we just hit our full moon, so it's going to be bright, beautiful, under a mostly clear sky. It's always really aesthetically pleasing to have something like that. Our next full moon, October 6th, so it's a ways away, but the reason why I'm really highlighting this, that's actually going to be our next super moon. It's not the biggest of the super moons, but it's October, November, and December of this year. We have a super moon. That just means that it is a slightly bigger looking moon and a slightly brighter moon. And then by the time the sun's rising up, we're hitting our low right around 56 degrees. What about our highs? What is going on here? We have the upper 70s over the next 3 days. It feels amazing. And then we're pretty much exchanging the lower to the mid 80s, which isn't too unusual for this time of year, going forward. But I think the biggest story that we have over the next 7 days is our rain chances. Look at that. This is essentially, if you just ignore the right part, this is what the graphic looks like when it's broken, when numbers aren't coming in, because we have zeros. And literally, I think the most of this time frame is going to be on the drier side, but we are anticipating a slight, I mean an ever so slight, barely chance that maybe you have a sprinkle on Tuesday night heading into Wednesday here. So I feel obliged to show it to you. This is barely anything, but here it is. So we have clouds possible tonight, so at worst it'll be partly cloudy, but then by late day tomorrow, we see clouds starting to increase from the east, which, by the way, it's the eastern side of the Carolinas they're going to see the rain. They'll have a chance for storms. There's even coastal advisories for some flooding right around Charleston just because of what's happening offshore, where we're kind of stuck in a little atmospheric blocking right now, and I'll get to that. But notice we see some green starting to work in. That's 3 a.m. on Wednesday. It's sticking around mainly east of I-77 into your Wednesday afternoon. I think a lot of this is dissipating before it hits the ground, so I am calling for some sprinkles for your Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. After that, we kind of dry out. Slightest chance again on Thursday, but all in all, looking pretty good. So your 7-day forecast, upper 70s to the lower to the mid 80s. And I think the best thing about this forecast is just how we feel. It doesn't get much better than this, ladies and gentlemen, because as long as you're going to have those dew points that are on side, that's going to feel fantastic. There's nothing really to complain about. So get ready for a wonderful forecast. Nothing really too much as far as rain goes. Here's what it looks like as far as our weather chess game. The reason why we even have all the rain to the east is because you have this front and this low pressure system that's stalled out there, dances around, high pressure system kind of figuring out where it wants to go back and forth, keeps on forgetting its wallet, so it comes back. But then eventually it's going to drift out. But in the near term, that's what's keeping us so dry. Now, what you're seeing here Monday at 7 a.m., I do think that our rain chances start to return as this starts to retreat and allows for our next system. But of course, things can certainly change if there is some sort of tropical system. As of right now, everything is very, very calm. So our tropical development is almost null and void for the time being, but that doesn't mean it's going to completely disappear. The only reason why that we're seeing a blank map right now is because of the drier air that took away the chance for Gabrielle a little bit earlier this weekend. So check it out. We have big plumes of atmospheric dust that have been jetting across the trade winds, and that's not good for hurricanes because there are three major things that will weaken a hurricane: wind shear, land, and dry air. There's a little bit of wind shear that also cut it up. So there's always a chance that once you have one tropical wave that later on in its venture, it could reform into something. But as of right now, not being studied or investigated by the National Hurricane Center. So let's dissect our season so far. And I actually want to transition into a little bit of hurricane climatology or tropical cyclone climatology to really show if we're above, ahead of schedule. And as of right now, we've had 6 storms. Fernan was the last one. Only 1 hurricane. I will tell you straight up, that is behind schedule. Usually by September 7th, yesterday, we have 3 hurricanes already in the bag. We did that last year, but as far as named storms go, we're actually a little bit ahead of last year. So what you're seeing right here is if it was ahead or below normal. And anything in the green, I did exclude the June 19th for the 2024. Anything in green really shows the storm that happened ahead of schedule. So storms, the B, C, D, and E names, both this year and last year, were above the curve. Now, Fernan was ahead of the typical storm number 6, August 29th. But the point that I really want to make here is what happened last year. And there's one name that sticks out of all of them here in the Carolinas, and of course that's Helene. But on September 9th is where we officially had the F name. Then 2 days later, you had Gordon. And then it wasn't until about 2 weeks later that you had Helene, followed by Isaac, and then eventually you had the J name that popped up as well. But notice that time frame, how quickly that it increases. So it really wasn't until storm number 11 that they finally got back ahead of schedule, and eventually it did turn into an above average season, where in a given season there's 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major ones. So right now we're on pause. We're waiting, but I'm letting you know that there will be a matter of a week span that you have a map like I just showed you, nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden you have 3 to 5 tropical waves that are going to be popping up. So I just want everyone to kind of say, hey, we don't have anything right now, but I definitely think that will change, and when it does change, it's going to be a big deal. But in the meantime, let's focus in on the good. Let's not worry about impending doom, because it's a fall alert. Today, tomorrow, and the next will be the best feeling days that we're going to have over the next several days. Those dew points are super dry. It's everything that you would want for this time of year. No complaints. This guy's winning. You're winning just because you live here.
We're all winning. James is winning. I'm winning.
Yep.
When you
Winning.
I saw the 7 o'clock stream on
Yes.
WCNC Plus, and you said beautiful, no mugginess. It's fantastic.
That's it.
I blow dried my hair.
See, hey,
I blow dried my hair.
and your
because,
hair looks great.
You know, it's all important for the girls. We got to think about our hair because it all gets crazy when it gets too humid. So.
Yeah, and our sister station sent us a weather IQ talking about difference in relative humidity and dew point. I'm a dew point guy, so James, one more graphic test. Any dew point that's below 60 isn't humid. It feels great. But today and tomorrow afternoon is literally in the 40s. That is actually very dry. Not so dry that you're going to have a sore throat, chapped lips, dry. But for this time of year, very dry. Now, those values do come back up to the mid 50s, still feeling great. But literally, you have the next 7 days that are going to be amazing, but the next couple, especially great for great hair days. The only thing that might ruin that is the breeze a little bit later on. But yeah, no, this is a great little run. Enjoy it while we have it. I know that summer will try to make a comeback. We have the mid 80s coming, but this is a nice little sweet stretch.
All right, we will take it. No complaints for a Monday.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Chris Mulcahy.
Of course.
Live Impact Studio. That's our Chris, giving it to us the way we like it, all nice and pleasant, and enjoy running your errands or mowing the lawn or whatever you have to do when you can. All right, we want to go to what is happening live right now. This is in the Tar Heel State at our state's capital in Raleigh, North Carolina. Board of Elections having a meeting today, scheduled until noon. Right now, it appears that they are discussing driver's licenses and voter IDs. Let's go ahead and listen in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
With Social Security Administration or maybe the DMV record. Now, after all that, what will happen then is voters without a validated driver's license or social, twice a year, they would get letters from the county board letting them know your number's not validated. Here's the reasons why that commonly occurs. If you could help us out, have this, and help us figure out the reason for this, that would be great. And here's the reasons why. Those that mainly for list maintenance, like I just talked about. And so they would get that letter twice a year. Now, a letter like that was pretty much already planned to be sent as part of the registration and repair project. And so the first letter will be sent by the state board. That would be in January. And then in August is whenever the county boards would begin being tasked with sending that letter. And so basically it would send it out every, what's proposed here is sending that every January and August. And so that way, before each election, they understand that. Now, one kind of wrinkle here is that for the most part, everybody probably that's currently in this status or that will be assigned this status will have already shown a HAVA ID. And so that's where if your number doesn't validate, then you have to show a HAVA ID document to prove your identity. And once you do that, you're fine, you're good to go. But there will be people for like new registrants who haven't done that before. So currently those voters, they get flagged as ID required. And the reason for that is what General Statute 163-166.12 says, is that if they show up to vote, they haven't already provided the HAVA ID, and say they don't have one with them when they show up to vote, then they have to vote provisional. So that there will be voters who might be tagged with both that flag and this new flag to ask them about their number not validating. But as soon as they show a HAVA ID, that ID required flag would be removed, and they would not be flagged to show a HAVA ID again in the future, and they wouldn't be they wouldn't be potentially funneled to vote a provisional ballot just for that reason. There may be other reasons that they might, but not for that reason. So the last piece there, what I was kind of getting to, is that the last thing was if the voter shows up to vote in person, then they'll come in at the check-in station. There will be a flag there, essentially to provide the voter with the same kind of explanation and request for help that they'll get in the letter. And so it'll be there at the check-in station. It'll be explained. State board staff will prepare a script that the county boards can use or must use. So that when they're explaining this, and the idea is if it's dealt with at the check-in station, it's not going to the help station and kind of bogging down the process a bit. It's really, it'll maybe just add a minute or so to the voter's check-in process. But, and what it'll say, and essentially what they'll say is, again, your number, it's not validated in our system. That happens for any number of reasons. you've already provided a HAVA ID before, you're showing your photo ID here as well. And, it'd be great if you could try to help us figure out why it's not working. If you want to do that today, then here's a form that you can fill out right here, a change form. Oftentimes, so if voters have a name change, they can just do that right there at the check-in station. So this is kind of mimic that process, be incorporated into that. And so, but either way, either the voter does something then, or they get a handout. They'll get a handout either way, saying all that same information, but they'll have instructions about contacting their county board later, and then they go vote a regular ballot unless there's a reason for them to vote a provisional ballot for another reason. Like say they forgot their photo ID at home and they're going to return later to the county board office with it, or vote with a photo ID exception form. So that's kind of the holistic approach, I guess you could say, about trying to get the numbers to further validate. And so, like I said, the voters they'll know ahead of time. They'll be informed ahead of time before they go vote, and then when they do show up to vote, they'll be asked again, but they won't have to show any HAVA ID again or vote a provisional ballot strictly for this reason. If there's any questions that you all can ask, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Steele, someone moves into North Carolina and or reaches the age of 18. They accept the responsibility to go and submit the application to be put on the voter rolls, correct?
If they would like to register to vote, then
Correct.
yeah.
But that's the time. And the information that they give up at that point is hopefully as accurate as it is. Is that validated in any manner?
Are you talking about when they first initially register to vote?
Yes.
Yeah, so what the county boards do is they process that voter registration form, and then they run the first name, last name, date of birth, and then either the driver's license number or the last four of the social security number, and they run that through the system whenever they're processing the registration.
So therefore, that information is validated at the first time.
That's right, yeah. So, and that's why I had mentioned this process for the next 3 months of like going back and trying to run the numbers again, because you're right. It's like a snapshot in time, I guess, would be a way to think about it. And so it could be that someone's information on either end has changed, or it might need to be corrected.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then again, someone may have gotten married or changed their name, and someone changes their address, so they may be voting in a different precinct or a different congressional district, whatever. And yet we don't require anybody to provide that update of information, do we? Is there any rule or requirement that that person takes the personal responsibility to bring that information up to a correct state and therefore hopefully is validated?
Well, so for instance, if you move, then, your address determines what precinct you're going to be voting in. And so part of the attestation on the form is that you have to have lived somewhere at the address that is your voting residence for at least 30 days before the election. So you are under an obligation to update your address there, as that example.
So if we validate the original information, then, and before that person is allowed to vote, then why wouldn't we be able to validate or require a validation of any updated information so that that information that that person has submitted is correct? Why wouldn't we hold it to the same standard?
Are you asking for a voter to provide additional documentation about their residence or other
Well, they
information?
did initially, and now the same voter can't live with the same information because something has changed that we had required of them originally. Why shouldn't they have the responsibility of providing that correct information so that that voter can be validated, their address can be validated, and the like?
Well, when they
If I can just jump in there, Senator, whenever somebody submits a new voter registration application, whether it's they've moved or what have you, say, you get married and your name changes, and the very next time you register to vote, you're doing it with that new name, but that old social security number, that likely won't validate in our system. But it is that second, third, fourth, we always run the numbers through validation with every voter registration application, right?
But at some point, we're accepting people's numbers that have not validated, and yet they're allowed to vote.
Right. Those folks who have provided that HAVA document, and that's that statute that Adam was pointing out, that if your numbers don't validate, or if you simply don't have one, there's a spot on the form that says, I don't have a social security number or a driver's license. Those people can prove their identity by presenting that HAVA document. We consider them to be fully registered voters at that point. Now, if they re-register, if they move to another county, register in another county, they provide all that information again, it validates again. And that's part of the process that I think Adam was talking about, is because there are cases like where, say, a woman registered at 18, got married at 32, changes her name, re-registers, and we know that person is that person because she validated 20 years ago when she was 18, but now it's not validating with her new name. So that's part of the process that Adam is describing, where the counties will go back and say, okay, we're confident that this is the same person, and we've got that issue with the name there. So they do go back through validation with every registration, and sometimes they don't validate.
And the first time they're allowed on there if the information is correct and validated. Anytime in the future, that the fact that it's not validated still allows them to vote as a regular voter and not flagged voter.
Yeah, if your number is not validated and you've shown a HAVA ID, then you've done what the law currently says you have to do in order to be registered and have your votes counted. Anything beyond that would probably be a policy decision for the General Assembly or perhaps Congress, I guess.
And Senator, if I might, that's what we're attempting to do here, is comport with the law that is clear on its face, 163-166.12, that says that these folks must be allowed to vote and their vote count regardless of whether it validates again. So we're trying to comport with the law, but both the letter and the spirit of the law. I agree it not having validated information is a problem as well. And that's the balance we're trying to strike here, is the attempt or future attempts to try to collect this information so that these folks remain flagged in our system.
And you've been listening and watching live the Board of Elections meeting happening right now in downtown Raleigh. We'll get back to that. But first, let's take a quick 2-minute break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It is 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. I'm Jane Monreal. We thank you for joining us this morning and every morning from 9 to 11 as we host what's live, what's local, what's happening in your neighborhood on a national level to a state level as well. Want to let you know that we are awaiting the president, who is expected to speak, scheduled at 10 o'clock this morning at the DOJ Religious Liberty Commission. That is what you're looking at right now on your screen. He is supposed to deliver remarks at 10 o'clock right now. So as we monitor this event that's happening out of Washington, D.C., we'll get you back to the Board of Elections meeting that is happening in downtown Raleigh as they continue to talk about voter ID. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Number that you have that says that people are voting that shouldn't be able to vote. You keep talking about citizenship and things of that nature. So where's that coming from?
Let me see if I
prefer.
Okay, well, it's just the fact that from being on this board and hearing about citizens or non-citizens that are voting that have been identified now, I'm just saying we have to do our responsibility and make sure that they indeed are. Because any person that has followed the rules as a citizen is disenfranchised by allowing someone else that's not to vote. Their vote is compromised.
And I guess you're saying it like there's this significant number. So
we don't know exactly what it is. That's the question. And there are some that are there.
So I think what would be better for a state board is before we project that out to the public, that we get more information so that what we're stating when reported in the press is correct. Because right now, what I'm hearing from you is there's this huge concern that people's votes are being undermined by people who shouldn't be able to vote. And I just haven't seen that in my 6 years.
Well, the question is one too much?
Well, so then my question to you is, what is the solution?
Well, if I had that answer, I would have given it already. But I see a problem, and I would hope that we see a solution to it by this board or by staff.
And when staff states that they're doing everything according to the law, I don't think we need to project on them that there's something else that they should be doing.
Well, I think I'm entitled to say what I choose.
Yes, you're entitled.
Thank you.
But when we sit on
Mr. Chairman,
we have to remember that saying what we want.
Yeah, I think this is kind of starting to take circular, but I hear.
But I'm saying
what you're saying.
We have an obligation as board members to be mindful of the words that we put out.
That's correct. We also had, I also hear what Bob Butcher was saying, that, we are repeatedly saying the same things over and over and over. And we don't seem to be finding a solution to changing those things. And that's the very definition of insanity, when you do the same thing and think you're going to have a different outcome. Now, it may not be in our power to do anything.
And I think that's critical that be stated, because what you just said is we're doing the same thing over and over again, and that's the definition of insanity. But what you left out is what we're doing is according to the law. That is what we are doing.
Well, maybe the law is insane, but
Can I ask a question that maybe is going to dig at this from a different side? Mr. Steele, if a person moves to North Carolina and registers for the first time and they provide a social or a driver's license, we make an effort to validate it. However, if it doesn't validate, is there not a notation put on the person's file for the first time they come in to vote that says ID required, and then the ID that can be provided can be a power bill the first time? So I don't see any inconsistency between what we're doing the first time and what we're doing a later time. Is that correct? Do I have that facts correct?
That's right. If someone's a new voter and their number doesn't validate, then, maybe another way to think about it is you're a new voter. If you register by mail, then you have to show a HAVA ID. But if your number validates, it takes you out of that. But then what our state law says is that for any method of registration, if you register, your number doesn't validate, then you have to show a HAVA ID the first time you vote.
So it's the same thing. So we're not doing There's no inconsistency that I can understand. That is because of that's what HAVA says or NVRA, and that's what our law says, correct? A 166 or 12H or whatever it is.
That's right, 163-166.12. It basically mirrors what's in HAVA for the process, but adds the requirement that if the number doesn't validate, no matter your method of registration, that you have to show a HAVA ID.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
For a question for staff related to this numbered memo, I believe staff has found a way that we can still notate for our records whose number has not validated, and we will continue to try and reach out to those voters to get better or more accurate information related to that. Is that a correct reading of our updated numbered memo?
That's right. Basically, what it does is it creates a new flag for the voters, and so that way, they're the ones who will be flagged to be sent a letter twice a year until their number validates, and then when they show up at the polls as well.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Rucho's point, it is important we have good data and accurate data, and I'm very mindful of that. And I think there are things that we can do better that will enhance our voter registration numbers and know that we have an accurate registration. I am also mindful we're constrained by what the statute says and what HAVA says in the NVRA. And I very much appreciate staff's work on finding an approach with our aging SEAM system where we can continue to notate that numbers have not validated and continue to address that. I know one thing I would like to see is if we can have better information sharing with the Department of Motor Vehicles, that would probably help cure a lot of this. It would resolve a lot of our false positives that we might have and result in better data. I know there's still some interest in pursuing the SAVE program so that we can validate citizenship, because any voter dilution is as bad as taking someone's vote, because there's the prevention of folks voting, which is nefarious, but also voter dilution is also nefarious. They both have the same negative and adverse effect on our election system. And I know that's something where we can do better, and I think there are plans to move us in that direction. The numbered memos we have in front of us, I think, are an indication that we want to move in that direction. We may need some statutory changes to make this process easier, but I am grateful for staff for finding a way to continue to flag these so that we can address them and not just pass on bad data or unverified data, I should say, and continue to make an effort to have the most accurate voter rolls in the nation.
Thank you, Mr. Eggers. And let me just point out that we're continuing to explore all options. We are still in discussions with the Department of Homeland Security on a memorandum of understanding that would certainly lay out the parameters of any potential data exchange with regard to the last four of the Social Security. At the same time, we are very interested in working with the Division of Motor Vehicles to obtain full Social Security numbers. I think the better the input, the better the output is going to be with regard to the SAVE system or any other list maintenance tool that you have there. And there is still legislation that is being crafted at the General Assembly that has language that would compel that data sharing, and we're certainly supportive of that as well. So we are continuing to explore all options. I think there's some misinformation out there that we have dismissed efforts with the SAVE database. That is certainly not correct, but at the same time, we have to make sure that, again, we follow the law in that regard, that we have a memorandum of understanding in place with the Department of Homeland Security, and that we are following the Privacy Protection Act and the protections around PII there as well. So thank you.
I guess I would just want to say that I don't think this board has a unified approach at this time about the SAVE process. I think that checking citizenship is very important. And I could support the SAVE program if I was assured of what is going to be done with that information and just the safety of turning over all that information. So I would want to see some very tight strictures around that kind of cooperation. And I also have the same concern about any movement of our legislature to collect a full social security number, for example, at the DMV. I just have privacy concerns about doing that. I think the last 4 has worked well, and I don't see the need of taking the risk of asking for people's full social security number in a setting that may not be fully secure.
This is all good discussion, but we should probably get moving on. What are we going to do with the number memo?
And, Mr. Chairman, I think this numbered memo accomplishes as much as we can hope to accomplish regarding dealing with our validation issue and our validation concerns as it currently exists. And again, I appreciate staff finding a way to flag that and to address that so that we don't have an all or nothing kind of approach. So I know there's been substantial discussions and work that's gone into that. So that effort is very much appreciated. Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion if that would.
Please do.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the State Board approve the amendments to numbered memo 2025-02 as proposed by staff, and further move that the State Board approve the adoption of numbered memo 2025-03 as proposed by staff.
Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Eggers, a second by Mr. Carmen on the number memo. I'll call the roll for voting. Is there any debate? I'm sorry, any debate or discussion? In that case, we'll vote. Mr. Carmen,
Aye.
Mr. Eggers,
Aye.
Ms. Millen,
Aye.
Mr. Rucho.
Aye.
Chair DeLuca votes aye.
And you have been watching live that Board of Elections meeting that is taking place as they have a full agenda this morning in our state's capital. We have a full agenda as well here on Live Impact News as we wait for the president to deliver remarks at the Justice Department's Religious Liberties event that is happening live right now. As we await that here on Live Impact News, we're going to take a quick break, just 2 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus at 10:15. I'm Jane Monreal. We are awaiting the president to speak and deliver remarks at the Justice Department's event today happening out of D.C. It is the Religious Liberty Commission that is happening. As you can see, the president's seal on the podium. So as we await the president to arrive here, we do know he is expected to hold a meeting, and during his remarks, announced the launch of a prayer initiative dubbed America Prays. And this will be tied into next year's 250th birthday across the nation, according to NBC News. So while we wait for that, we will go ahead and play this previously recorded interview. I just recorded this around 9 o'clock this morning. This is with local realtor David Hoffman on Charlotte's housing market. Let's get you caught up with the housing market of the Charlotte area now on WCNC Plus. Well, as we check in on the housing market in Charlotte, we're seeing a significant shift from the seller-dominated landscape we've experienced in recent years. Many potential buyers and sellers are asking, where's the money? What does this mean for our real estate decisions? So we are joined right now by David Hoffman from David Hoffman Realty to break down what's happening in our local market and then what you need to know whether you're buying or selling. David, thanks for coming in to WCNC Charlotte here.
Thank you for having me this morning, Jane.
All right, so David, you've been getting a lot of calls about this market shift. Walk us through what's changed in Charlotte over the last few months.
Yeah, definitely. So, Jane, we still have more and more sellers putting their homes on the market from the pandemic.
Oh,
The
still,
pandemic,
5 years ago.
Absolutely. The pandemic may be over, but 2020, 2021, 2022 sellers are finally putting their homes on the market, still some of them out there. Also, if the home needs work, it's not selling.
Market then?
For some homes.
Okay.
If the home needs work, it's a buyer's market. If the home's flawless and inventory is still low, then it's a seller's market. So if the neighborhood has very little supply of actives and more pendings, where it's higher pending to active ratio, then homes are selling fast. But if there's more actives to pendings, where it's an inverted ratio, then buyers are realizing they have options. But the home still has to be flawless with 2025 updates.
Okay, so buyers still have a little bit of picky power.
Buyers have probably never been in a better position. Yeah, picky is an understatement. Buyers have dry powder that they didn't have in 2009 or 2010, and buyers have more and more options every month. And so if the buyer doesn't mind doing a little bit of work to make it their dream home, they can steal a home right now.
Like right now in the fall.
Now, yeah.
Summer seems like I just anecdotally driving around, I see new signs for sale all the time. Now that we're wrapping up summer, are we still going to see a lot of homes for sale?
Yeah, you're right, Jane. So there was 11% more homes hitting the market last month versus a year ago, and there's 40% more homes on the market even 1 year ago. So more and more homes are still hitting the market, and the homes that are on the market aren't selling. So the good news for buyers is they have lots of options, and a lot of them have cash. The good news for sellers is if they're willing to do the work to make the home aesthetically pleasing inside and out, they can still get top dollar.
And what's driving this market?
This market is driven by buyers by a strong stock market. Buyers are in a good position financially. More and more of them are back in the workforce, but they also realize they have options. For sellers, they have equity. So we're in a really healthy market where the sellers have equity and the buyers have cash. And so it's still a really strong economy, but inflation has hurt.
Okay, so somewhat balanced with a slight edge to buyers is what I'm hearing.
You nailed it. It's a very balanced market, but buyers are still in control unless the home is flawless and there's more pendings and actives in the neighborhood. So if a seller wanted to sell right now, they need their home to be flawless and they need to be patient before they even hit the market. The good news is if they hit the market with low inventory in that particular community, some homes are still selling opening weekend, but then other homes, Jane, are still taking 5, 6, 7 months. Oh. We're almost at a 4-month supply, which is the first time in 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's talk about communities. Is this happening in particular areas around the Charlotte market?
You know, it's funny. There are definitely neighborhoods, you know, South Charlotte, Union County, up at the lake, Myers Park, South Park, Eastover is always popular. West and East Charlotte are getting more and more popular as they're getting built up. And so there's a lot of buyers that are watching, but the buyers are only buying where there is no competition and they can they can win the bidding war, or where they can get a steal. And so there's a lot of options out there. It's kind of like going to the buffet. You don't really spend too much time in any one meal because there's so many options. It's almost too many options.
Oh, okay.
And so buyers just kind of wait. There's no urgency right now.
All right, so if sellers want to move the process along, you said, sprucing it up a little bit, what does that entail, and what else can sellers do to get in a better position?
Great question, Jane. Historically, a seller just had to make their home look nice. Make sure there's no scuffs on the wall by painting it, make sure the kitchen and bathrooms look nice and there was fresh grass and mulch. Now it needs to be 2025 modern updates. It needs to be modern and contemporary. It needs to be flawless. New homes are selling the best because they're brand new and buyers have options. So the good news for sellers is they have equity. The bad news is if the home is not flawless, we have a lot of discerning buyers that know they have options and they're not in a rush.
All right, and these buyers, are we talking in-state? Are we still seeing influx of people moving into the Charlotte area?
Yes, you're getting both. We have over 150 new buyers every day coming in from the Midwest, from New York, New Jersey, from the Bay Area. So a lot of people are moving here. And so Charlotte's really popular, but here's the thing. They still have to sell where they're coming from. They still have to sell in New York, New Jersey, and California before they can get here, and that's helping. It's helping a lot of the rental market. A lot of buyers are holding off to get top dollar back home, or they don't want to sell because they still have such a low rate. And so it really is, like you said, a balanced market, but more of a buyer's market.
All right, more of a buyer's market. And then how long are we going to see this pattern be going on?
So there's two things that have to happen before it turns back to a seller's market. We have to get all this inventory off the market, which again, a lot of it's the pandemic still, which I think the fall and winter are going to be rough for sellers as they continue to drop prices to move it if they have to sell because they've upsized, downsized, or moved. And then we need rates to come down a little bit. But with inflation still high, the short-term rate is still high, and so mortgage rates are still high. So I think what's going to happen is first supply has to start shrinking, which will happen early next year. It'll be about 6 months will be rough, Jane. Mm-hmm. And then as supply shrinks, prices will have hit a bottom, and you'll see late spring next year, rates will start falling because it kind of lags behind the down market. I'd say by next summer, a few months earlier than this time next year, you'll see the markets start picking back up.
All right, so as you describe the economy and the state of what needs to drive the real estate market, the specifics that are happening in the Charlotte market as far as buyers versus sellers, is that what is happening on the bigger scale across the country?
Yes and no. It's funny, I look at some of the markets. Nashville and Charlotte are very similar, as is Atlanta and Raleigh. But you go out to the Midwest and you go to cities like Denver and Kansas City, and you're seeing listings shrink. You're seeing housing market supply shrink. So some markets lag others. We lag a little bit behind the Midwest and the West because they have to sell first. They can't buy here until they sell there. And so we're going to fall a little bit behind being, the good news is everyone's moving here. The bad news is they have to sell where they're coming from first.
Right, yeah. The bad news is that they're all moving here.
Yeah.
All right, anything else we need to know, David?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're just talking about a lot of different things here, but the bottom line is this. If you're looking to sell your home, it needs to be flawless, and you need to time the market when you have little inventory. If you're looking to buy and you don't mind doing work after you close, you could steal a home right now, finding out what terms matter most to sellers to get them down to their bottom line.
All right, very good. Good information as usual. Thanks for checking in as we close out the summer months and certainly that hot real estate buying spree that we always usually kind of see for the housing market.
Thank you for having me again, Jane.
Awesome. All right, that was our previously recorded interview with David Hoffman of David Hoffman Realty in Charlotte and Cornelius now. As we wait for the president to arrive here at the Religious Liberty Commission in Washington, D.C. for his remarks to announce his new initiative, America Prays, we are going to take a break here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. We'll be back in 2 minutes. And you are watching live right now the Religious Liberty Commission that is beginning to gather as we see the dignitaries and VIPs take their place on stage. We are all awaiting the president to deliver remarks on his initiative called America Prays. And this will launch and coincide with the nation's 250th birthday next year. In the meantime, we're just looking in at some of the live pictures here right now. Again, this should be happening very shortly as we see them sit down and settle in. We know that's our cue to tune in. And can we listen in? Let's go ahead and listen in just for kicks and giggles, shall we?
Oh, I think they're playing some music.
Playing some music? Okay. All right. That's James on the mic this morning. Carlene is off today. But we will get to that picture as soon as we see the president walk up to the podium. Back out here now, Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, just about 10:30, as we bring you the local, live, national, international news as it happens, and also previously recorded interviews, such as the press event from the president last Friday. If you've heard, he is signing an executive order to rename the Pentagon back to its original name, the Department of War. And let's listen to his previously recorded remarks from the White House here on WCNC.
We have a number of executive orders for your attention, sir. Okay. From 1789 until 1947, our nation won some of its greatest military victories under the direction of a Secretary of War operating within a Department of War. Today, with this executive order, you will authorize the current Secretary of Defense and the current Department of Defense to once again embrace this great lineage and once again be named the Secretary of War and the Department of War.
So this is something we thought long and hard about. We've been talking about it for months, Pete and I, and Dan. Dan came into the fold. By the way, a great general. He headed up the, I wouldn't call it an attack. I'd almost call that one maybe even more than an attack. What he did with Iran, you saw the success of that operation. It was perfect. In fact, this was sent to me by the great company that makes that particular B-2 bomber, and it was flawless. It was actually flawless. They flew for 37 hours back and forth, and there wasn't a bolt that was out of condition. There wasn't an engine failure. There was no problem. It was a perfect attack, and it knocked out any possible nuclear capability for Iran, which nobody wanted to see and we weren't going to put up with. So great job, Dan. And we've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War, and I'd like to ask our Secretary of War to say a few words. Pete Hegseth. I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest manufacturers of equipment by far. There's nobody to even compete. And you see that with this and so many other things. The Patriots are the best. Every element of the military, we make the best by far. So, Pete, I'd like to ask you and maybe Dan Raisin-Cane to say a few words, please.
Mr. President, thank you. After winning a war for independence in 1789, George Washington established the War Department, and Henry Knox was his first Secretary of War. And this country won every major war after that, to include World War I and World War II. Total victory, Mr. President, as you said. Then 150 years after that, we changed the name after World War II from the Department of War to the Department of Defense in 1947. And as you pointed out, Mr. President, we haven't won a major war since, and that's not to disparage our warfighters, whether it's the Korean War, the Vietnam War, or our generation of Iraq and Afghanistan. That's to recognize that this name change is not just about renaming, it's about restoring. Words matter. It's restoring, as you've guided us to, Mr. President, restoring the warrior ethos, restoring victory and clarity as an end state, restoring intentionality to the use of force. So at your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. So this War Department, Mr. President, just like America, is back. Thank you for your leadership and your clarity. We're going to set the tone for this country. America first, peace through strength, brought to you by the War Department. We're back.
Thank you very much. Very well stated, and really it has to do with winning. We should have won every war. We could have won every war, but we really chose to be very politically correct or wokey, and we just fight forever. And then we'd, win, lose. We wouldn't lose, really. We just fight to sort of tie. We never wanted to win. Wars that every one of them we would have won easily with just a couple of little changes or a couple of little edicts. I was told that ISIS would take 5 years to win, and Dan Kane, when I told him how long would it take, he said, I think about 4 weeks, sir. I said, what do you mean 4 weeks? I was told 5 years by the people in Washington. You know who they were? 5 years. I said, you can't do it in 4 weeks. I actually flew to Iraq to meet with him, and I met him at a big air base. And remember that famous day, right? It turned out to be a famous day for our country because you're now the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the biggest deal. And he is, because he did things that everybody said couldn't do. So they said it was going to be 5 years, and he knocked them out in about 4 weeks total, 100%. We took over, and ISIS was gone, and pretty amazing. But we never fought to win, and now if we have to fight at all, we solved 7 wars. We have the one that I thought was going to be probably one of the easier ones, and that's with President Putin and Ukraine. And that turned out to be one that's a little bit more difficult, but the 7 are done. They were supposed to be much more difficult to solve. I solved every one of them, and we're going to get the other one done too. But it turned out to be a little bit more difficult than I thought, and it'll get done or they'll be held to pay. But because they're losing 6 to 7, it used to be 5. I used to tell you 5. Now it's almost 7. I guess 7,000 people last week. 7,813 people, young soldiers, died. Russian and Ukrainian, not American soldiers. But it's a shame. And it's just, they're human lives, and I want to see it stop. But General Kane's done a fantastic job. And again, defeated ISIS, which they said would take a long time, and it didn't.
We're going to bring you live now to the Religious Liberty Commission hearing that is happening live out of Washington, D.C. Attorney General Pam Bondi just walking up to the podium. Let's listen in live on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Patrick, our founders believed every individual has the right to worship freely without fear of their own government. No one knows this better than President Trump. Under his leadership, we have dropped FASAC cases against pro-life Christians, stopped the FBI from spying on Catholics, launched multiple investigations into anti-Semitism in schools, and we are aggressively prosecuting vicious crimes against Jewish Americans. President Trump is fighting each day for our parents, our students, and every American's right to live out their faith. There is no greater defender of the First Amendment than the president, and there is no greater president than Donald Trump. We all thank President Trump for protecting the God-given rights of every American. And it is my great honor to introduce to you the 45th and the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I said we'll have to cut Lee Greenwood a little bit short. How good is he, right? He's been with us right from the beginning. And I wanted to stand and listen to the entire song, but people would have said, look at the ego of that guy. He just wouldn't stop. He just stood there and listened to the applause. But I appreciate it very much. And I want to thank you for doing an incredible job, Pam Bondi. The Attorney General has been unbelievable. Incredible job. Thank you, Pam. Amazing. And thank you to all of the faith leaders, pastors, and patriots who have come to the Museum of the Bible for this historic meeting of the Presidential Commission on Religious Liberty. These are incredible people. And everybody wanted to be on this commission, and I made a couple of people unhappy, maybe even enemies for life. I don't know. But they all wanted to be on the commission, but we picked the right ones, and they've done really a profound, an amazing job. But America was founded on faith, as we know, and I've been saying it for a long time. And when faith gets weaker, our country seems to get weaker. When faith gets stronger, as it is right now, we're having a very good period of time. After some rough years, good things happen for our country. It's amazing the way it seems to work that way. And under the Trump administration, we're defending our rights and restoring our identity as a nation under God. We are one nation under God, and we always will be. The need for this commission has never been more clear than it was last week when the ineffectual senator from Virginia, a man named Tim Kaine, stated that the notion our rights come from our Creator is, quote, extremely troubling to him. Very troubling, isn't it troubling? Isn't it terrible, though? How he would say something like that, and advocated really by a totalitarian regime. This is what they say. But as everyone in this room understands, it is tyrants who are denying our rights and the rights that come from God. And it's this Declaration of Independence that proclaims we're endowed by our Creator with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The senator from Virginia should be ashamed of himself for many things. For many things. For things even beyond that. But in his own way, nothing's more important than those words. They were terrible words. As president, I will always defend our nation's glorious heritage, and we will protect the Judeo-Christian principles of our founding, and we will protect them with vigor. We have to bring back religion in America, bring it back stronger than ever before as our country grows stronger and stronger. Our country is now the hottest nation anywhere in the world. 1 year ago, our country was dead. And I say it, 1 year ago, our country was dead. We had leaders from all over the world that talked to me to say, your country's in trouble. And I just left the Middle East, King of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, a lot of the big countries. Then I was with the heads of NATO, the NATO nations, all of them. Everyone said essentially the same thing, that a year ago your country was dead and now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true. It's true in every way. But to have a great nation, you have to have religion. I believe that so strongly. There has to be something after we go through all of this, and that something is God. We go through all of this for a reason. It's not easy, believe me. But I want to thank the Commission's chairman, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. He's been the chairman of my Texas campaign from day one. He's been the chairman of my Texas campaign, and we went through 6 primaries, and we went through everything that we went through, and we won them all. We won everything, including 3 elections. Got the most votes in the history of Texas 3 times. Can you believe that? That's pretty good. I heard that the other day. I said, I like that. But I want to thank you, Dan. You've done a great job and very instrumental in the creation of what we're doing today, as well as a very special friend of mine, Dr. Ben Carson, so special that he's being honored. He's being honored in a couple of weeks, and I was absolutely not here. It was a very important mission for the country, and because I usually take missions only for the country, but this was for the country, and I said, I can't do that one. I'm going to go back. I'm going to be with Ben Carson at Mount Vernon. I believe it's going to be pretty good place, pretty good location, right, Ben? But he's been my friend from the beginning, right from the beginning. Should I tell him the story about what you said to me, Ben, the famous words? He was a very tough opponent. We were fighting it out, and we had actually 18 candidates, including me. And Ben came up to me right after the first debate. He said, you know you're going to win, don't you? And I said, no, I don't know that. I think I'm going to win, but I don't know it. 18 people, and I had never done it before. They had all done it. They were all governors and senators, talented people. He said, no, you're going to win it because God wants you to win it. Right? Right? But that didn't stop him. We went through. I said, when is this guy going to quit? You know, he gave me these words of beauty. Then he goes for weeks and weeks. He was tough. He was a tough one. But we love Ben. Ben's special, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Ben. Thanks also to the commission members, including Secretary Scott Turner, Pastor Paula White, who's been with me from the very beginning, right? Pastor Franklin Graham, great gentleman. Great gentleman. Thank you, Franklin. A man I've watched for years on television, but you're not supposed to admit it. You know, it's like with me. People don't like to admit it, but we all watch. Phil McGraw, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil. Thank you, Phil. Great guy. He came out early for me. He did a piece on me before the election that was different than any interview I've ever done. He asked me the most personal questions. I said, this guy's really getting personal. But everybody that saw it loved it, so thank you. Thank you very much. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, highly respected man. Great. You come from New York. He was in his own right the king. He was great. And we worked together in the first administration so much on going through that horrible epidemic that we went through. A couple of epidemics we had to go through, a couple of really bad ones, but we worked together, and I helped financially with your church and your schools, keeping your schools going, and it was an honor to do so. Bishop Robert Barron. Bishop, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great job you've done. A man I watch on television a lot. He doesn't believe it, and I do. Eric Metaxas. Where is Eric? I do watch. He said, you really don't. I said, I really do. I said, you have to have more confidence in this. Your show is excellent. And he's a great guy. And he wants me to call it the Super Centennial. He said Super Centennial. And I think we're going to do that. Let's change it. I really like that idea because we call it the 250 Centennial, but it's really not. It's really just below the try, right? So we're going to call it Super Centennial then, okay? Let's do that. Will you please make the changes? All of my people that are all over the room, please make that change. A wonderful person who I've known for a long time, Kelly Shackelford. Kelly? Thank you very much. Great job. Ryan Anderson. Ryan, thank you. Congratulations. Carrie Bowler and Allison Ho. Carrie? Two great people. And we're also joined by the chairman of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, Ralph Reed. There's Ralph. Ralph, you help so much. You know, Ralph, I think, hit more doorbells than anybody else I know. Millions and millions. What was the number, Ralph? 10 million. 10 million. And it's true. You know, somebody else would say, well, was it really? And it was. People were saying he was all over the place. Thank you very much, Ralph. I appreciate it. We'll never forget it. Thank you. Let me also thank everyone at the Museum of the Bible, including Steve and Jackie Green. The job they've done is just incredible. It's I want to say their entire family's here. I want them to all hear it, but they founded this beautiful museum to honor the most widely read book in history. And the job they've done is amazing. I asked, which museum does the best? You know, I always like to find that out. And numerous times they're saying the Museum of the Bible that more people come here than anyone else. You probably won't read that in the newspapers or the media, but this is an amazing place and it does tremendously well, so respected. And they built it up and it was a labor of love. Well, it's nice that he's rich as hell, too. It always helps. Where are you? Where are you guys? Where are they? Yeah. Look at that. They don't even get good location, okay? See, if I did the Museum of the Bible, it wouldn't be as successful, but I'd be sitting right here. No, I'd be sitting up here. You've done a great job. Everybody's talking about it. It's I got a little involved with museums, you know, because I had a little problem with the Smithsonian. We like a little more positivity. It was all about all the bad things in our country. I said, what about the good things we've done? So I got a little involved. I got a little involved with that. And they're making, honestly, they're making changes. You know, they were also told what to do by people that came before me, in all fairness. But they're making changes. Big changes are being made at the Smithsonian. But I just want to thank the Green family because what you've done here is incredible. Thank you very much. For thousands of years, the Bible has shaped civilization, ethics, art, and literature, and it's brought hope, healing, and transformation to untold millions and millions of lives. The Bible is also an important part of the American story. That's why I'm delighted to announce that just moments ago, I personally delivered the Trump family Bible given to me by my mother. I remember the time she gave it to me. But it was used in both my inaugurations and also display at the museum, and I guess it will now be displayed right in the heart of our nation's capital, right here, and that's an honor. That's an honor. We're here this morning to discuss the grave threats to religious liberty in American schools, and you know what's going on. We all know what's going on. But I will tell you, a lot of progress has been made in the last 8 months, tremendous progress, more than I thought we could make in so many ways. Not only that, the woke agenda is practically gone. It's deep-seated. We have to make sure it's out. It's very bad. It's like a weed. You think you killed it, and then it starts growing again. So we have to be careful. But it's very, very different than it was. You look at West Point, how proud they are of their heritage. They did something this week which I thought was appropriate. Some of you know what that is. Does anybody know what that is? Yeah, I like it. I like it. Oh, look at who we have over here. We have your associate, Pam, huh? Leo 2.0. Well, we have Leo here. Is he doing a good job, Pam? That's great. He's at DOJ. He's a great man. He's a great friend of mine for a long time. I'm glad I got to see him. I would have been in big trouble, Pam, if I didn't see him. But thank you, Leo, very much. I appreciate it. For most of our country's history, the Bible was found in every classroom in the nation. Yet in many schools today, students are instead indoctrinated with anti-religious propaganda, and some are even punished for their religious beliefs, and very, very strongly punished. It's ridiculous. Joining us this morning is Hannah Allen from Honey Grove, Texas. A few years ago, Hannah organized a group of her classmates to pray for an injured peer. The school principal declared that Hannah's generous act of love was prohibited from taking place in front of the other students. Didn't like it. And she won. And Hannah, I just want to thank you for letting the light of your faith shine for all of those to see. We really appreciate it. And where is Hannah? Is Hannah here someplace? I think so. Hannah, stand up, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hannah. I know what you went through. I know what you went through. It's great. Appreciate it. To support students like Hannah, I'm pleased to announce this morning that the Department of Education will soon issue new guidance protecting the right to prayer in our public schools, and it's total protection. Thank you, Hannah. Great job. See what you did, Hannah? Who knew? Who knew that was going to happen, right? Thank you, darling. Also with us is 12-year-old Shay Encinas from California. Last year in 5th grade, Shay was forced to read a book to a kindergarten student promoting a message of radical gender ideology that is contrary to his religious beliefs and ours. I'd like to have Shay come up and tell the story. It's an amazing story. Shay, please come up.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Hi, I'm Shane Cias. I've been a Christian my whole life, and Jesus means everything to me. When I was in 5th grade, my school forced me to teach my kindergarten buddy about changing his gender using a book called My Shadow is Pink. The book said you can choose your gender based on feelings instead of how God made us. I knew this was not right, but I was afraid of getting in trouble. After my family spoke up, the school treated us badly, and kids started bullying me and my brother because of our faith. And the school did nothing to stop it. It hurt a lot, but I kept trusting God. I believe kids like me should be able to live our faith at school without being forced to go against what we believe. I hope no other family has to go through what mine did. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay. Great job. That was delivered well, wasn't it? On day one of my administration, I signed an executive order to slash federal funding for any school that pushes transgender insanity on our youth. We also banned the chemical and surgical mutilation of our children. Thank you. We got men out of women's sports. How tough was that? But could you imagine, seriously, I'm just thinking to myself, transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, all of the different things we talk about, it's insane. And if you were here 15, 20 years ago, and if somebody made a speech about transgender for everyone, I always say transgender because for everyone. Transgender, we have some states that actually can force it upon you without the parents' notification or approval. It's not even believable. But can you imagine men playing in women's sports? So you're up 15 years ago, I guess, probably 10 years ago, but 15 years ago, and somebody said, we will not allow men to play in women's sports. People would look at the person and say, what's he talking? Is he crazy? It happened. And not only that, the Democrats don't want to give it up. I watched a congressman fighting like crazy this weekend for men having the right to play in women's sports. And they don't understand. But I don't want to really fight them on that. I tell all the Republicans, let them go. Let them go. Just bring it up about a week before the election because you don't want to talk about it. But they say it's an 80-20 issue. I say, Dan, it's a 97-3 issue, okay? And transgender's about the same. It's crazy. It's sort of a crazy thing. It works.
You're watching live the president discussing many topics when it comes to religious liberties. This is the Religious Liberty Commission, which is having a live hearing out of Washington, D.C. at the Museum of Bible. And we will continue to carry this here on WCNC Plus on the secondary channel. So all you need to do is come out of the main channel and then go into the secondary. This will continue live as he continues his remarks. remarks. I want to bring you right now to a post on X from North Carolina Governor Josh Stein in regards to the family of Irina Zarutska, the stabbing victim on the light rail a couple of weekends ago, expressing his sorrow, saying in part, "I am heartbroken for the family of Irina Zarutska who lost their loved one to this senseless act of violence and appalled by the footage of her murder. That's why my budget calls for more funding to hire more well-trained officers." That post just in the last hour. But again, we will continue to follow the president's remarks here on WCNC Plus. He is also aware of the stabbing that happened a couple of weekends ago. He was informed over the weekend, and yesterday to a bunch of media folks, he did say that he would learn more and know more about this incident by this morning. So perhaps he will make some comments on Zarutska's stabbing and that incident that happened on the light rail. Charlotte Today is up next, coming up here at 11 o'clock. We thank you for watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Rabbi or imam or anybody says anything about politics, you can lose your tax exempt status. I said, you got to be kidding. So that's what happened. And they were petrified of it. Remember that? Nobody even wanted to talk about it. They were absolutely, they became a different group of people. And I pledged to them at the next meeting, we had another meeting a couple of weeks later with a similar group of people. I pledged to them that if I win, we're going to get rid of the Johnson Amendment. This was Lyndon Johnson, who had a tremendous fight with a minister from, I believe it was Houston or Dallas, and they didn't like each other. And Lyndon Johnson was a very powerful president. He had good power, good strength. He ended up being very weakened by the position, but he had tremendous power. He was a big deal maker. And he got that done, which is pretty amazing that he could get that done. Everybody fought him, but he got it done. He pushed it through Congress, where you lose your tax exempt status if you even utter a word about politics. And that was amazing when I heard that. I never heard of that before. And I said, we're going to get rid of it. And we got rid of it. You have got, because you're the people we want to hear from. We want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from a lot of people. I hear from too many people. You're the people we respect. Franklin is incredible. All of the people that are up here, I want to hear from these people. And they come from a different place than me. I come from a business place where there's a lot of rough people, bad people, not really religious people. There are some. But you're the people that I want to hear from. That's why we go to church on Sundays, or we go to wherever we are to listen to people of faith. And it was horrible. I said, you mean, when I heard that, and I said to the other people, that means that you should be the most powerful people on earth, in a sense, and yet you have less power. And I pointed down to Fifth Avenue, which was 68 stories below, and I said, that means that anybody on Fifth Avenue, in theory, has more power than you do. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the opposite. We have to give your voices back. And I've given you voices back, and that's one of the reasons that we see upticks now, I think, in religion. So it's very important. Remember that moment when I said, I'd love to have your support, ladies and gentlemen? And it was like dead silence. I said, there's something going on. And we figured it out. We did something about it. So thank you. Thank you very much to Paula White, too. But upon taking office, I also ended the weaponization of law enforcement against religious believers and pardoned the pro-life activists thrown in jail by Joe Biden for saying prayer. And you know, people don't realize about the Biden administration. It was a very mean administration. He's a mean guy, actually. Not a smart guy, never was, but he was a mean guy. No, he was a mean guy. And he knew enough about what was going on. He wasn't like some of the people that surrounded him on the beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office. They were stone cold mean. But Joe Biden and the Biden, they were mean people. What they did to people, what they did to J6, what they did to so many people, they were mean people. These were really radical, horrible people. And he wasn't that way 20 years ago. He was never the brightest bulb in the ceiling, but he was a man who wasn't overly mean that I saw, but boy, he became really mean, and his administration was one of the meanest we've ever had, and that's why they're out of here. And people, they're having a hard time getting jobs, and that's the way it should be, because they were bad. They did tremendous disservice to this country, including allowing 25 million people from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, drug dealers, all over the world. They were entered our country from jails. The prison population of Venezuela was emptied out into our country. And that's what we're doing now. I spend so much of our time, Tom Holman and the people that have worked on this so hard. You know, Kristi Noem, all of them, they've worked on it so hard. It's like an unforced error. And to allow people into a country who are truly, there are evil people. We're all people of religion, but there are evil people, and we have to confront that. I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic. Just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country. And I created the first ever Department of Justice task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. And for those people that are a little bit naive or not well-read, there is a tremendous anti-Christian bias. We don't hear about it. We don't think about it. You hear about anti-Semitic, but you don't hear about anti-Christian. Now, you have a strong anti-Christian bias, but we're ending that rapidly. I will tell you, it's a whole. We're in a much different world today than we were 1 year ago. This is like a different world. And to support parents' rights, we're fighting, as you know, for school choice, which most people want. Most people want it. I'll tell you. Dan was responsible for getting it along with the governor of Texas. They got it in Texas, and we helped you a little bit. They needed about 20 votes from the legislature. He said, could you make a phone call to whoever they were, the legislators, who I like a lot. But they were about 20 votes short, and they had been for about 10 years. I said, all right, let's give it a shot. So I gave a big talk to who were they, senators?
They were House members, but you also helped us defeat about 15 anti-school choice people.
That's right. We defeated a lot of anti-school choice. But anyway, he got it done. So congratulations. That was a big accomplishment. But as part of our tax cuts, we've created a massive tax credit for school choice scholarships so that you can send your child to a school that shares your values, and you get tax credits and all sorts of good things happening. And I'm also taking action against anti-Semitic and anti-Christian bias in our institutions of higher learning. You've been watching that play out. They're making very substantial settlements. And Leo's involved, and Pam Bondi's involved. We've launched. You know, we're getting hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements, Pam, and Leo called me up, sir, you can do better than that. I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to get one where he really likes it. But he always says, everyone else says, that's amazing. Except for Leo. He says, sir, you could have gotten more. Oh, good. Thanks, Leo. But we've launched sweeping civil rights and Title IX investigations into more than 60 colleges going on currently, and universities to stop their violations of civil liberties and First Amendment freedoms. And, you know, we're involved very much in Harvard. That's one that people seem to be reading about more than others. We have many going. And other than having a radical left judge, we have a very radical left judge. But, you know, the appellate courts have been really good to us. So you go before some of these judges, no matter how good a case you have, you can't win. But we've had a lot of them, but we've done very well in the at the appellate level. And the case of Harvard, we have an absolute radical left judge, disgraceful, should not even be there. But we're doing very well with Harvard, and we're doing very well with all of them. And where we don't win at the lower courts, which sometimes we do, in some states we get a very fair shake. In other states, it's not even possible. But we've done very well at the appellate level and at the United States Supreme Court. But this includes an unprecedented $200 million payment from Columbia University. Columbia paid us $200 million essentially in fines and penalties. But many more settlements are soon to follow. And they're going to be behaving because they understand we're coming back. They would not let you have your voice. They wouldn't let the people in this room, any of them, have the voice, because that's not the voice they wanted to hear from. They wanted to hear from a very sinister voice, and we're not going to allow that. In recent years, we've seen far too many violent attacks perpetrated against Americans of faith, beautiful Americans of faith, including in our schools and places of worship. And you know about it more than I do. 2 weeks ago in Minneapolis, a demonic killer shot 21 people and murdered the 2 precious children at a Catholic school. Can you believe that? Hard to believe. And time goes by and people say, oh, I sort of remembered, but I remembered, I'll always remember it. What a horrible thing. Too many happens too much. Our hearts are shattered for the families of those beautiful children. And I've made clear that Attorney General Pam Bondi is working really hard, that we must get answers about the causes of these repeated attacks, and we're working very, very hard on that. The Trump administration will have no tolerance for terrorism or political violence, and that includes hate crimes against Christians, Jews, or anybody else. We're not going to allow it. And there was also a horrible killing recently in Charlotte, where I talked about, and so many others, and we're going to get to the end of it. And you know, when you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions. And the actions that we take are nothing. This cashless bail started a wave in our country where a killer kills somebody and is out on the street by the afternoon. In many cases, going out and killing again. Cashless bail. And you try and reason with people like in Chicago with the governor and the mayor. You try and reason with them, and it's like you're talking to a wall. It's just I assume it's just a political ideology. They're not stupid people. Must be an ideology that's just buried in their head and you can't do a damn thing about it. And we'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out. You know, Washington, D.C., you'll be happy to know, is a free and safe zone. It's so safe right now. It was one of the most dangerous. Can you believe it? So, you know, you see the beautiful buildings, but we're going to also do an upgrade because a lot of the beautiful buildings have a little graffiti on them. They have roads that aren't proper. They have medians that are bad and falling down into the road, the dividers. We have things that we have to take care of and beautify. We want to beautify it. Very little work will be done. I'm very good at that. That's what I really did the best in life, probably. I said, was I a better builder or politician? They said, I think you were a better builder, sir. I said, I didn't know if I was happy about that or not. But I was a really good builder, and I'll fix this place up for peanuts. I'll fix it up. We'll put in new dividers. You ever notice they're all rotted, rusting, and falling down on the road? Potholes all over the place. We're going to have this place looking beautiful within 12 months. Even the little white tiles in the tunnels, you know, you go through the tunnels and there's little white tiles that have been up for about 60 years and like there's pieces missing. And you can't match them, believe me, you can't. You try and match them, it never works, you can't. They've been up 60 years, you don't get the same batch no matter what you do. But we'll take all those tiles off and you're going to have beautiful white tile tunnels again and everything's going to be really the way it should be. Because when foreign leaders come, you know, I had to take down the tents. We had over 58 tent cities that we took down right in the middle of our parks, right next to our great buildings, Supreme Court. You'd have a tent city right there, and nobody would ever tell them to do it. We had a blue tent right on Lafayette, and they seemed to have a permit. And one of the fake news media was asking me the other day, what about the blue tent? What blue tent? Because all the tents you got, somehow these people were very well connected with the communist cause. And I said, there's a tent up there? Really? Yeah. And he was a friendly reporter for a change. He said, it's terrible that the tent, I said, I didn't know that. I'm surprised that I checked and it was. And we got it down very quickly. It's down. It's down. Wasn't easy. People chained themselves to a tree and this and that, but that's okay. They can chain themselves if they want. That was a tough one. That's been there for years. It's been there for many years. We took it down. Came down very quickly, Pam. So I hope Attorney General Bondi will be looking into some of these things, and I really know that some of them she is. She's done such an incredible job. You know, she's got a lot of pressure on her not to do these things by a certain group of people that I guess don't love our country, or there's some ideology that they're just indoctrinated with. But she's going to do a fantastic job, and we're waiting for a call from Chicago. We'll fix Chicago. And again, D.C. is right now so safe you can go out. Friends of mine called, one in particular, he's been in D.C. for a long time. And he said, I haven't gone out in 4 years for dinner with my wife. The restaurants were all closing because people were afraid, even if they were in the restaurant, it didn't matter. They were held up. You know, guys would walk in with guns into a restaurant. And that's over. It's not happening. It's now safe. And this man said, I've gone out to dinner in the last week and a half 4 times. And I am so safe. My wife could meet me at the restaurant. She could walk by herself. There is zero threat. The National Guard working with the police, working with the mayor. The mayor has, you know, that's not her ideology. And now I think it maybe is her ideology. She's taking a lot of heat, too, from the radical left. You know, they don't like that she's allowing it. But look, she's going to either allow it or we'll just do it because, you know, it's just, and she understands that. She understands that. But I can tell you the people of D.C. are thrilled. I have never had so many people. The other day I had a big scrum in front of me of the press. And I said, you know, everybody here, or many of you have been mugged, right? And they're all going like, and these aren't people necessarily on our side. They're all going, yes, yes, yes. What about you? Yes, it's true. I was a couple of times. Every one of them. It's crazy. Not going to happen anymore. So right now we went from one of the most, and some people say the worst, the most violent city. Can you imagine our capital being the most violent city? But it was really bad, into a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone city. There's no crime. They said crime's down 87%. I said, no. It's more than 87%. Virtually nothing, and much lesser things that take place in the home they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this was a crime. See, so now I can't claim 100%. But we are a safe city. You can walk to a restaurant. You can walk to the White House if you work there. You can walk to the Capitol. And even the Democrats say, I can't believe it, but they don't want to admit it, but I can't believe it. We could do the same thing in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. We did it. We saved Los Angeles. We saved Los Angeles, Dan. You know that. Los Angeles was a mess. If we didn't send our troops in, Gavin Newsom would have had a real problem. We sent our troops. The head police officer, the top person, said we could have never done this alone. We sent our troops right in at the beginning, and we killed it. And it was nasty, but we killed it immediately. And I don't know why Chicago isn't calling us saying, please give us help. When you have, over just a short period of time, 50 murders and hundreds of people shot, and then you have a governor that stands up and says how crime is just fine. It's really crazy. But we're bringing back law and order to our country. And I began my remarks today by noting that the reverence for our Creator, we have reverence for our Creator, and it's inscribed into our Declaration of Independence, a copy of which I have very proudly hanging in the Oval Office, an original copy, very old, beautiful copy. Next year, we will celebrate 250 years since that declaration was signed. As part of the grand, well, this is really a commemoration like I think we're going to try and do a commemoration like nobody's ever seen before. But we've invited America's great faith communities to pray for our nation and for our people and for peace in the world. And it's going to be an amazing time. We're going to have an amazing time. We have the Olympics, we have the World Cup, and we have 250, okay? The super centennial, as our Mandarin says. But And it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be maybe bigger than the both of those events. You know, when I was president, I got the World Cup and I got the Olympics. I got them to choose us, Los Angeles. And I was very proud of it. The only problem was I wasn't going to be president because I would have served out normally my time. And then you had some very bad people who rigged an election. And look what happened. I end up getting the Olympics, the World Cup, and 250. It's amazing the way God works, isn't it? It's amazing. Isn't it amazing the way God works? It's true. I got the Olympics, you know, because I'm a little bit of a selfish person, I guess. I said, you know, I got the Olympics, and Obama would not call. I'll never forget, the head of the Olympic Committee called, and the mayor of Los Angeles called me, and he said, sir, the president will not talk to them. You know why? Because he traveled to Geneva or wherever to make the presentation, and he he finally got